Many things happen in this world every day. In between, things happen that are hard to believe. In our today's video, we will talk about 10 such facts that we find hard to believe. 10 amazing facts you won't believe are true. Number 10. Fight or flight. Humans have an obsession with sharks. These daily denizens of the deep have frightened and fascinated us for ages. However, sharks get a bad rap as being cold-hearted killers always looking for the next human-shaped morsel to chow down on. Shark attacks on humans are extremely infrequent. Despite a lot of media portrayal, they are also seldom looking to eat people when they do. Nevertheless, there are a lot of theories on how to survive a shark attack that are severely flawed or outdated. One thing you should never do when approached by a shark in the water is to try to outswim it. Sharks are made for water. Humans are not. You will most likely catch you. Most of the time, the reason the shark attack occurs in the first place is because the animal has mistaken the person for prey. Flailing about or splashing while you try to flee will only encourage the shark's interest in sampling a bite of you. You should also not play dead, as some have theorized. Not only is it hard to do while in the water, sharks operate based on fear. If you're dead, they will not be afraid of you. Rather than play dead, experts suggest you look the shark in the eyes and never turn your back to them. This show of strength can intimidate the shark into looking somewhere else for lunch. One of the most common ways people suggest dealing with a shark attack is punching the creature in the nose. But what lies right below the shark's nose? The mouth. And have you ever tried to punch underwater? It's pretty hard. Experts say that rather than the nose punch, try an eye gouge or try to injure its gills. This will be easier, more effective, and you won't have get as close to the mouth. Number 9. Human hibernation. Every year when winter comes around, people think of how nice it would be to curl up in a nice warm den and just sleep away the entire snowy season. Mammals like bears and bats, insects such as bees, and several species of snakes all participate in their own form of hibernation. So why not us? The question has recently seen new light from scientists, especially those interested in achieving long-distance space travel. Some of the research has shown that there may be some latent ability for humans to survive in sleep mode for long periods of time. There are also a few instances of humans having done so naturally. One specific instance was that of a 35-year-old Japanese man who in 2006 survived in freezing temperatures for 24 days, stuck on a mountainside. The man's body shut itself down until he was rescued. His metabolism all but turned off, and his body temperature fell 27 degrees below normal and rested at 71, enabling to live without food or water while avoiding hypothermia. This case and others might just be flukes, where the variables had to be just right. But some scientists theorize that our DNA might contain survival abilities that have laid dormant since our evolutionary beginnings as bacteria. Such bacteria can live without oxygen and even flip their metabolism on and off when it benefits life. Though we may never be able to harness this ability on command, researchers are hard at work devising ways for people to survive in suspended animation. This manufactured hibernation could be the key to interplanetary travel and our ability to cure diseases. Number 8. Headless hen. Almost everyone knows the idiom running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And you may also know that chickens can survive for a few seconds deaf. But did you know that one chicken actually lived for 18 months after losing its head in 1945? And Cherie, the Colorado Clara, and Lloyd Olson were finishing the cycle of raising fried chicken by taking them one by one and decapitating them. Once they had finished the batch of 40 or so chickens, they noticed something unusual. One of the chickens was still alive and walking around without his head. They placed the chicken in a box on their porch to let it die, but were even more surprised when they looked in the box the next morning and found it was still alive. The chicken, which they named Mike, went on to live for over a year, living off of water and liquid food that they dripped into his throat, and even took him on tour with a sideshow. Sadly, or perhaps mercifully, Mike died one night via suffocation while the Olsons were on tour. But how is this possible? Well, it turns out that a chicken's brain lies further back in the skull, and one would normally think it almost appears to be in the neck region of the bird. So one can chop what looks like the head, aka the eyes, and beak off, and the bird can still survive. However, what still puzzles scientists is how the bird didn't bleed to death. Number 7. The almighty Coke. In the tiny town of San Juan Chula in Mexico, there is a church called the Coca-Cola Church. No, the Coca-Cola Company isn't sponsoring them. It's called this because their parishioners believe that burping expels evil spirits. And what better to do it than by drinking lots of Coke? The soft drink has become a major feature in the everyday worship of the Chamberlains, and on days that services are held, every person inside the church can be found holding the glass bottle of Coke and drinking it out of shot glasses as if it were medicine, then progressing to belch and spit their various sins away. Their religion is a unique blend of Mesoamerican rituals and Catholic practices, which are led by a Sherman who swears by his methods of gas and fluid expulsion. It's also not surprising that the richest man in town is the Coca-Cola salesman. The Coca-Cola Company is very fond of this little town, as well as they often craft special billboards just for them that can be seen as you enter the town. If you've ever seen the movie, These Gods Must Be Crazy, you now know that maybe the plot wasn't so far-fetched after all. Number 6. Dozing off. Have you ever heard a song in a dream and then awoke to find that it was playing on the radio? This has probably happened to every one of us at one point in time. How about smelling something and then awakening to find that very thing nearby? Well, turns out this is actually impossible, as our sense of smell turns off while we're asleep. Yes, certain people can have dreams it feels they are smelling something, but this is due to internal stimuli. It may seem that the smell of our morning coffee has pulled us from dreamland, but this can be attributed to already being partially awake. Have done numerous studies testing whether certain smells affect people whilst in slumber, and found that even the strongest smells give no results. One of the speculative reasons behind this is that our brains have been trained to register seemingly more important senses such as sight and hearing. So the more marginal sense of smell falls by the wayside when we're at rest. This is the most likely answer to the question of why people don't awaken to the smell of smoke from house fires, and solidifies the importance of having smoke detectors in your home. Number 5. Fungus humongous. If you try to think of the biggest living things on Earth, you might picture a blue whale, an elephant, or perhaps the giant redwoods of Northern California. But in truth, compared to the true largest living organism on Earth, these are all tiny. Turns out that the largest living thing on Earth is actually easily missed. It's the Malaria solidifies, a fungus which stretches over 2.4 miles in Oregon's Blue Mountains, known commonly the honey fungus. This giant interconnected mushroom field is calculated as being between 2 and 9 millennia old. Like many fungi, the honey fungus is parasitic and feeds off the roots of trees and other plant life. Most of the fungus can't be seen as it dwells underground. The Malaria psyllid appears is not the only one of its kind either, as many of these and similar fungi found throughout the northwestern United States, though it may not be easy to cultivate the land where this giant lives. It turns out the fungus is actually very tasty and can be used in many recipes. Number 4. First class kits. Have you ever wished that instead of having to buy a plane ticket and dealing with TSA, that you could just put a stamp on yourself and let the post office deal with the rest? Well, it just so happens that up until 1920, people actually delivered their children to relatives this way when the post office began delivering packages in 1913. They apparently had very few rules and many parents who could not afford train tickets for the youngsters to visit. Grandma took advantage of this and mailed their children. The amazing thing is that the mail carriers complied. That is, as long as they were under the 11 pounds weight limit. There are several instances where this occurred, most famously in 1914 when 4-year-old Charlotte May Pierce stuff was mailed 73 miles to her grandparents from her home in Gainesville, Idaho. Finally, perhaps after the increasing cases of people mailing their children, the postmaster declared that live animals apart from bugs could no longer be transported through the mail. In the defense of these seemingly negligent practices of a bygone era, most of the people who mailed their children were from rural areas and were much closer with and trusting of their mailmen than we are today. That said, it still probably wasn't a very good idea. Number 3. Diamond drizzle. When thinking of rain, it's natural to only think of it being in the form of water. But the reality is that there are many types of rain in the universe that can be made up of all kinds of elements. Scientists are finding out one of the most common types of rain in the galaxy might be in the form of diamonds falling from the sky. In our solar system, this occurs in the planets Jupiter, Saturn, and likely others. Diamond rain forms when methane turned to soot from lightning. Storms crystallizes into graphite and then hardened into diamonds. The scientists estimate that 1,000 tons of diamonds are produced in this strange precipitation every year on Saturn, enough to make the richest of us blush. Though still not proven beyond reasonable doubt, these extremely extravagant weather patterns are considered highly probable due to carbon being the fourth most abundant element in the universe. And many planetary atmospheres are abundant in hydrogen and helium, which would be conducive to turning the carbon into diamond. Number 2. Spy cats. During the Cold War era of the 1960s, the KGB and CIA both tried to gain even the smallest advantage in espionage, through many strange and often outlandish experiments. But one of the most bizarre experiments the CIA ever tried was trying to turn train house cats into discreet field agents in order to listen in on their enemies. The project was titled the Acoustic Kitty and would have been lambasted by PETA, animal rights activists, or anyone with a heart today. Secretly, the CIA hired surgeons to implant a microphone into the cat's ear, along with a battery-powered radio transmitter and antenna in the cat's tail. The project cost around $10 million and quickly backfired when the cat was released on its inaugural mission to surveil the Soviet embassy before it could make it across the street. The cat was hit by a taxicab. Despite this initial setback, it took some time before the CIA gave up, citing that it was impractical to train cats and spies. Yeah, we could have told you that from the beginning. Number 1. Tired of sleep. There have been times in everyone's life in which sleep seems like a chore. After all, one of the commonly thrown around complaints usually goes something like, if only we didn't have to sleep, we could get so much more done. For one Hungarian man, this life was a reality. Paul Kern, a government official for his native land, fought in World War I in the Eastern Front on the battlefield fighting the Russians. In 1915, Kern was shot in the head, rendering him unconscious. He was treated at a nearby medical facility where the bullet was removed, along with parts of his frontal lobe. However, he amazingly survived and regained consciousness. From that moment on until the end of his life, 40 years later, did not sleep. Not only did he not desire to, but his body would not allow him to. Nervous system and brain specialists throughout Europe were unable to pinpoint any case of this bizarre condition. Kern never suffered from the symptoms of sleep deprivation, and his cognition remained the same as it ever had. Near the end of his life, Kern did lay down for a few hours at a time to rest his brain, though he was always awake and aware. Scientists say that doing this allowed the brain to rest enough just to keep him going for the rest of the day. But as for why he never needed real sleep, they are still baffled. Subscribe for more videos. That is all for today, gentlemen. If you want to see similar videos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Press the bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos.